Hey guys, it's Eddie and today I am back with another movie review for you all. Now today's movie that I'll be reviewing is a film that I literally just finished watching and I was so excited to talk about it that I just felt like I had to jump on camera and give you guys my thoughts because I was so overwhelmed, I was so thrilled by it, I was so excited that I just had to sort of gush. And the film is Jonathan Glazer's Under the Skin, starring Scarlett Johansson. Now, this film centres around a extraterrestrial being played by Scarlett Johansson who comes to Earth, Scotland in particular, and hunts for unsuspecting males whose bodies she can harvest for some unknown reason. We're not told in the film why she's harvesting these young men's bodies. But apparently in the novel, she does this for the sake of her planet. Now, this isn't expressed in the actual film, and a lot of things that are explicit in the novel are apparently left out of the film, such as, this being's name. We don't know her name. She's just an unknown extraterrestrial female in the film. But nevertheless, that's the reason why she's sort of wandering around Scotland, trying to lure these unsuspecting men into her very eerie house. Now, we are introduced in this film in a really eerie, intriguing opening sequence, which grips you and draws you in from the very beginning. There are some fascinating visuals used, and, it all culminates, there are a lot of strange, weird, phonetic dialogue. There's, a lot of bright lights and circles, which all culminates in a shot of an iris, a pupil. And this obviously is our femme fatale alien coming to Earth and, getting ready to do what she's meant to do on Earth. And this really sets this premise of it being a really wordless film. For a long time, there's not a lot of dialogue, so the viewer really has to piece together the impression or their impression of what is happening in this film, which I love. I think it's always interesting when a film doesn't give you the answer straight away. It makes you work to try and understand what's going on, and that's exactly what this film did. And in the meantime, there was some really stunning cinematography and visuals that really caused some striking contrast, and they were also beautifully simplistic. For example, when in one of the first scenes, when our extraterrestrial's little helper on his motorbike fetches a woman from a field. It all sounds very random, but honestly, if you watch it, it makes weird sense. But anyway, he fetches this poor unsuspecting woman, and there is a scene where Scarlett Johansson strips her and takes and adorns her clothing. And all of this is set against a white background. And then later on, when Scarlett Johansson lures her first male prey, shall we say, into her realm, it is all set against a black background. She's sort of walking away from him, he's following her, there's sort of this very sort of mirrored liquidy floor, and it's all sort of pitch black apart from the two of them. So these very sort of contrasting visuals, I think, are absolutely beautiful, and they're really unlike anything I've ever seen before, I don't think. And I feel like the acting amidst this is very naturalistic. I'll talk about Scarlett Johansson in the main role in a moment. But the way the camera is placed in the street scene, so when Scarlett Johansson is just sort of driving around looking for her next unsuspecting victim, the way the camera is placed maybe on the dashboard of the car, maybe in the back seat, it almost feels like you're watching a very strange, seedy documentary. And I feel like this is in sort of perfect contrast to those very artistic looking scenes that I described before, with when she lures her prey into her little little den, shall we call it. But I feel like those switches from quick cut naturalism in the sort of street scenes to those artistic backgrounds are fascinating and so interesting to watch. And as I said, in those sort of scenes where she's luring in her prey, I feel like the audio, the soundtrack is really cool, because in the street scenes there's no dialogue whatsoever, there's just naturalistic background noise. But in those scenes where she is, you know, luring men and preying on them, there is a really eerie soundtrack that is kind of reminiscent of those sort of 50s and 60s sci-fi films. And, you know, it's those sort of really high-pitched violins that just set off this really spooky atmosphere. So again, that contrast is absolutely wonderful, and I think it's really awesome. And it kind of keeps you on your toes, because, you know, one moment you're in sort of naturalistic daylight, you're sort of following her in this van, you know, it's just sort of background chatter, and the next thing you know, you're in this very sort of hyper-realistic, really strange scene where, you know, everything is pitch black, and her victims sink into this really strange liquidy floor. It's the surrealism of those scenes pitted against these very otherwise naturalistic ones is really interesting, and I found that fascinating to watch. Now, we can't talk about this film without talking about Scarlett Johansson in the main role. Now, I think she gives a really sort of calculating, almost cold and really measured performance, and I think we must applaud Scarlett Johansson on that accent. She puts on a British accent, an English accent, just a normal English accent, and it's impeccable. I mean, she barely speaks in the film. She's almost mute, but when she does speak, you know, to try and chat up her victims, I suppose, her accent is amazing. Now, I like Scarlett Johansson. I think she's a great actress, but this film really made me look at her in a different way with regards to being a really fantastic actress. Because I think this film is really special, and she gave an absolutely fantastic performance, unlike anything I've ever seen her do before. So I have to applaud her on that. I think the nuances of her performance were fantastic. A lot of the things that she expressed, she did so with her eyes, because as I said, there's very little dialogue, and, you know, those looks she gives when she's looking at out of her car window at the man on the street, deciding, you know, who's going to be next. It's really wonderful to watch. And then as she progresses through the film, her alien character seems to receive a little bit of a conscience, and, you know, we see her develop, and she speaks even less at this point, so she really does manage to express everything in her face. So I think it's an absolutely gorgeous performance that I thoroughly enjoyed and didn't expect from her. But yeah, really well done to Scarlett Johansson for that. Now, what I like about this film is it doesn't guide you. I think there's a lot of bravery in giving little dialogue in a film, because what is nice about this film is it does leave you a little lost and a little bit disorientated, and I like that. I like not really knowing or feeling a little bit bemused by a film, because that just makes me sort of want to run off and research it, which I think is a nice feeling. I don't want to be sort of told everything that's going on, and this film certainly doesn't do that. You come away feeling partially confused, partially outraged by the ending. Anyone who's watched it will know. Because despite her weird sort of femme fatale nature, you find yourself rooting for this alien being. And, you know, a film that is able to really make you think, as well as sort of tying you to, you know, the main character, the sort of, I guess she's a protagonist, but she's kind of not, because she, like, lures men in and kills them. We'll call her protagonist for now, but a film that allows you to become emotionally attached to a protagonist while, you know, being wonderfully artistic, while also, you know, really making you think, is a film that I feel like has got the whole package. And I love feeling kind of bemused after a film. You know you've watched something special when you're kind of completely in awe of it and completely overwhelmed. And I felt like that when I watched this film. I haven't really witnessed anything like this before. I think it's kind of a little bit of a modern masterpiece. I'll go as far as to say that because, you know, it's very reminiscent of David Bowie's The Man That Fell to Earth, The Man Who Fell to Earth, sorry. It's got that kind of vibe because it's an alien coming to Earth, exploring the world and, you know, all the nuances of, you know, Earth life. But it's got a really eerie feeling about it, this film, which I kind of don't feel like The Man Who Fell to Earth did. I feel like it was a little bit more, I don't know. This film felt kind of seedy, and I don't feel like The Man Who Fell to Earth did that. It's kind of just, I feel like it's the modern version of that film, but while I did like The Man Who Fell to Earth, because that's the only film that I can think of that relates to this film in any way, I feel like this film was a lot more sort of artistic, and, you know, I think Jonathan Glazer's direction was absolutely amazing, and I really don't have anything negative to say about this film because I'd been toying with watching this film for a while. I kind of just put it on my list and was like, you know, I should probably watch this, but it took me a long time to watch it. When I finally sat down and did, I was so pleasantly surprised. I absolutely loved it, and I hope that anyone who watches it, maybe who is inspired to by watching this review, hopefully watches it and is also pleasantly surprised. I think no matter how you feel about kind of artsy films, they might be a little bit annoying to you. This film is artistic without being totally pretentious. I feel like it's got a wonderful lead actress in the role with it that gives a fantastic performance and also has a really interesting story. It's not just pretty for pretty's sake. The cinematography, nevertheless, is absolutely fantastic. And I have to say that I thoroughly enjoyed this film. And I can't give it any less than 5 stars out of 5 if I had to rate it. So that is my take on Under the Skin. Hope you guys have enjoyed this review. Remember, you can always request movies for me to review by commenting below or messaging me on my Tumblr. The link is always in the description. But that is it for now. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you in the next. Bye.